So what do you do with big die sets like this? They could be tedious, there's a lot of pieces. How do you make your life a little bit easier? And here's my solution. So what I do is I start by separating the dies that don't have any layers, that just stand alone, meant to be cut out from one solid piece of cardstock and all good to go. Those are at the top. And then I start to separate the dies and their layers. So I grab this pumpkin, for example, and it also has a vine and the little top piece of the pumpkin, the stump. I'm not even sure what it's called, if it's called a stump. And then I just label it with a permanent marker, A and A on the back. If by some chance the die set, like this one, also includes other layers, so for example, this one here also includes the top of the squash, I'm going to label it B and B. So it's got two letters on the back, but at least I know at this point which dies actually belong together. And if you mess up, all you need to do is grab a little hand sanitizer and give it a rub, and it will come right off. Now for today's cards that I'm making, I'm using two sets of these types of dies. One is floral themed and one is fall themed. And I'm going to be now selecting my colors. Now, if you have trouble selecting colors, I went to Pinterest and actually found a spring color palette and a fall color palette and chose cardstocks that were similar. The next thing I do is I lay down my die cuts so that I can ensure that I have a relatively even amount of representation of the colors. Obviously, if you have a lot of leaves, you'll have a lot more green than you will the other colors, but you don't want to have it that you have every color represented and then you only have one die cut out in yellow. That yellow wouldn't make sense then. Be flexible. Sometimes you may have to go in and add something like a black cardstock randomly in there. Black and white go with anything. You can see for the fall card, I did the exact same thing, just laying them out with a nice fall colored palette. Then you just need to run them all through your die cutting machine. And I find when you pre-lay them down on your cardstock, this goes fairly quickly because you can cut multiple dies at one time. And then becomes the fun part of sorting through everything and gluing them together. When I get a new set, I do like to build each and every one of the pieces so I know how they work and what belongs to what. And you can also refer back to the packaging that the die comes in or to your actual die cuts themselves that are now labeled with the A, B, C if you're unsure of which die cuts belong to which pieces. Once you're all done, you can gather them all up like I did with these spring and these fall ones, and then you can begin building your cards. One of the things I enjoy doing, at least for the first time that I'm creating a card like this, is I like to build collages. So what I will do is I will start to place these in random areas, adjust, and then I will glue down. So I don't start gluing right away. I know I'm going to use a mix of foam tape and regular glue so I can get some different layers in this, but just seeing what looks good where, making sure not all the red pieces are clustered in one corner together, that kind of thing. And one of these envelopes is really good to hold them in, or something like a rectangle die, a circle die, something like that. And you can either create yourself a collage or create yourself a really fun background. Then once I have everything kind of where I want it to be, then I will go in and start adding foam tape or liquid glue, elevating some of the elements, keeping some flat against the envelope, whatever the case is. And I try to use as many pieces as possible. Originally, I was going to stick this onto the front of a card, adding the sentiment here in gold foil, but then I decided that it was too big. Obviously, for an A2 size card, it would have to go on a 5x7, so I left it as is. I think this would be a really cute card to put in something like a fall gift basket or hand over in person. I mean, who says a card has to be a rectangle? Now for this spring card, this is where I kind of had a little bit of fun. So I went ahead and I cut myself a white panel down and I cut myself a gray panel in the same color. And I cut down the gray panel on a bit of an angle so that it would cover up about half of the white panel that I created here. I did that using some foam tape to add a little bit of extra dimension because I'm going to create somewhat of a pocket here to put some of these flowers inside. And sometimes these arrangements happen quicker than others. So I tried to add, some ones here, and that dark green just isn't looking all that great for me. So I'm switching things around, making it then a little bit more simple maybe nothing on the gray panel. And it's all about experimenting. And this is why I always say, don't glue, lay it down, see what it looks like. You may come up with something pretty cool if you just have the patience to sit and rearrange. I eventually settled on this little pattern here, which is a little more chaotic than I thought I would settle on, but I kind of like it and I wanted to use quite a few pieces. So I went ahead and added some more 3D foam tape here to the back panel. This is definitely a very textured card. Or a dimensional card rather, and I just made sure that nothing was going to be saggy, so I covered the whole backing with the foam tape. And you can see I hot foiled a little border around the outside of the card just to add a little bit of shine to it. And who said this card needs a sentiment? I think it looks great without one. It's been a long time since I just sat down and created cards just for fun without really thinking of all these different techniques, and I hope you enjoyed this video with 2 pieces of inspiration. I love both of the cards and how they turned out, and I'll see you soon for another video.